you can give us a few backgrounds of who you are and give the people a little bit of a background of who you are and especially why you're excited about Bitcoin.
Sure. So my name is Alex, and I'm founder of a company called Heatbit. I've been building this for the last, it's over 5 years now. Time flies. And I focus on making space heaters that do Bitcoin mining.
And why are you especially excited about Bitcoin?
I think it's a good form of money. I see that the regular fiat money is being printed so much that it actually impoverishes a lot of people, and I think Bitcoin has a very good chance of stopping that. So it's very exciting for me.
Really cool. It's also really interesting for me, the whole Bitcoin mining sphere, because we've come and we talked about that a little bit before we started recording, where we've come from you can mine Bitcoin on basically any computer at home with just like your laptop that you have and you use. And then now we have those huge publicly traded companies that mine Bitcoin in huge warehouses. And now hopefully we get to the point where we can distribute it a little bit more again. Maybe we can start off with a little bit of the evolution of Bitcoin mining and can get then into this implications of that.
Sure. You're absolutely right. It started with just people mining on their computers. You could just mine on the CPU, and it was, at that time, it was powerful enough. And the block was quite a bit bigger as well. And then people started to compete a bit more. I guess that was the whole vision around the mining, because the code for managing increased competition was already inbuilt, right, with the adjustments in the difficulty. And as people started to compete a little more, they started using more powerful computers, and then the difficulty would keep adjusting. And then people realized that, you could actually, instead of using the CPU, you could use the GPU. And that would do the SHA-256 a little faster than the normal CPU. And that was the second computing paradigm, so to say, for Bitcoin mining. And then people started to compete more and started to make something a bit more customized, the FPGAs. So that would be the devices already made pretty much specifically for Bitcoin mining, or adjusted for Bitcoin mining, that would be even more powerful than the GPUs. And then came the ASICs. With the ASICs, it's already very deep in the design when the actual chip is designed specifically for Bitcoin mining. And then it started with the more basic ones, but by now the Bitcoin mining chips are made only at the biggest fabs in the world with the latest technology. So the companies that produce the chips now, they compete with the likes of companies like Apple for the fab time. Like the tech side of Bitcoin mining really evolved a lot. Then on the business side, it was also quite an interesting story. It kind of started with just people mining at home, and it was kind of fun and interesting. And then as the competition kept increasing, one side of the competition would be the advancements in the hardware. So that's the ones I've talked about, right, from CPUs to GPUs, FPGAs, etc. And then on the other side, in this whole Bitcoin mining economic equation would be the energy. Who has the cheapest energy to convert essentially into Bitcoin? And while people were okay to start with just their own home electricity, at some point it started to grow in size, and the economies of scale started to kick in. Right, in a lot of places, if you build a bigger consumer of electricity, you can get a better electric rate. And so it started to grow and grow and grow. And now we came to the point where there are some very big miners that have all sorts of direct contracts, very often direct contracts with utilities to get the best rates. And it really merged with the energy markets quite a bit, because now Bitcoin does consume quite a lot of energy, and it's can coexist and help each other with the energy market, actually. Like, we can get into that topic if you want. But with all this growth in size, and the improvement in the economies of scale with the improvement of energy prices, something came in that was that is not so good for Bitcoin, and that's the centralization of mining. When it started, it was individuals, and it was thousands, later tens of thousands of individuals who would mine on their computers. But now it's most of the mining is done by this huge warehouses full of miners, and that poses quite a bit of a threat to Bitcoin security. Because the bigger you are, the higher chances that someone could collude and do all sorts of things that would disrupt the normal chain, pun intended, of events.
Yeah, this the lack of decentralization, not only in miners but also especially in the mining pools, is seems to be a bigger and bigger problem. That I think not enough people talk about that. We often talk about nodes, that how important it is to run nodes, and it's kind of also a topic that we have to discuss. And we talk about quantum computing, I think, a lot, even though I think maybe the mining decentralization aspect is even more important to actually talk about. How do you look at the actual threat factor of getting a too centralized Bitcoin mining pools, and maybe also in the mining where we have big publicly traded miners that do a lot of the mining and not a lot of individuals, or I think as Bob Burnett calls them, horses and rabbits?
It poses risks, right? It poses risks from multiple directions. One, it poses risks of an intentionally bad actor, right? Because the nodes are tend and supposed to take the longest chain. If the bad actor starts to direct most of the mining to a particular direction, then it may be possible to control, which kind of kills a lot of value for Bitcoin. So that's one side. But then it also poses risks of unintentional bad actors. For example, we've seen what happened in 2021 when the price went down. You had some very big miners went bankrupt, and a lot of machines had to be turned off, right? And with the big miners, you look at their balance sheets, and very often they're very highly leveraged, right? Because they need a lot of capital up front to buy the machines, to build the mining warehouses, to secure big contracts with the utilities. And it may work there and then at the time when they sign the contract, but then if Bitcoin price goes down, they could be getting in trouble. And this leverage could mean that this process of getting in trouble could be very, very quick. And then, as the hash rate could be dropping in those events. So what it means is that if let's say a price of Bitcoin drops significantly, it could mean that the security of the network could actually be reduced by quite a lot as well. Whether the miners would want it or not, they will have to turn off their machines because they have to pay the power price, and it's just going to be uneconomic for them to keep mining. So some of the best solutions to this I see is in efforts to decentralize the mining and by bringing it back home. And I'm sure we'll talk about it. And while right now the home mining is probably a very small part of the total hash rate, but that's probably the best solution, because it could be not just decentralized physically, but it could also be some of the most resilient mining where people don't really have to turn off their machines irrespective of Bitcoin price.
How do you actually? This is something that just came up in my mind with which is sometimes talked about, and I think it's a non-problem because it's very far out, and the fees for transactions will rise a lot. But how do you look at the security budget problem of the mining rewards getting less and more and more dependence on the transaction fees? I mean, I kind of love that transaction fees right now are very low because I earn in Bitcoin on chain. I spend in Bitcoin on chain multiple times a month, sometimes even like every week. So I do enjoy right now the luxury of having on chain transactions, even if it's not big ones. But do you see that this will actually be resolved in the long run because just many people will use it as a money? And in that, I sometimes feel like if we have Bitcoin more just as a store of value and it's just used as a savings technology and people just have it in their accounts and don't really transact with it, that then it might be a problem long term.
There's a few questions in what you're asking, right? So one is whether people not using the base layer for transaction is a big problem, and the other one is whether it's a big problem for miners or not. So starting with the first one, I guess we would all want to see people using the base layer a bit more, but this is the world we live in, and there's other blockchains that people built, and I think there's a lot more of the actual financial transactions are happening on blockchains like Tron, right? Because I think Tron is the most popular for USDT transfers, and that's just what reality is and what we see. And then for the Bitcoin and the payments in Bitcoin, I think it is upon the people in the community, and there's a lot of great companies out there doing this, to build the tools to enable people to transact either in Bitcoin or some sort of Bitcoin, or some form of Bitcoin, or maybe in what people are used to transacting, like USDT, but on a layer of Bitcoin. Maybe it's the base layer, or maybe it's any kind of L2. Right? There's Lightning, there's Liquid, there's other forms where it could work. So I think we should accept the reality and build the tools to enable people to transact even easier and even cheaper, right? If the fees that you say that the fees are quite low, if the fees were high, it wouldn't really help the Bitcoin network that much. So I'm not really a proponent of like, the fees should be high. No, the fees are, what they are. We should just accept them and build tools to enable people to do more on Bitcoin. Now, coming to the miners, there is the halvings, and the halvings are, it's a bit like in the evolution, right? You have the survival of the fittest, and with the halvings, the survival of the fittest is something that pushes the miners to become more effective. So it pushed the miners with the technological advancements and with the growth of the size and the improvements in energy efficiency of the mining. And now, as the technological advancements, like I mentioned, right, the latest mining chips, the producer of those chips, they compete with companies like Apple. Like it doesn't really go much further in terms of efficiency of those chips. There are still improvements in the energy consumption that are possible, and then the least efficient will die, and the more efficient will stay, and will keep sustaining the Bitcoin network. The problem could be that this disruption could be happening too quickly, and this is where I'm a little worried, as I see that the most efficient miners, as in the miners that don't really pay the electricity cost, their share is still relatively small. I think we still have a long way to enable the most efficient mining. uh, um, so that it could keep sustaining the network after 2-3 halvings.
Which makes me think a lot about this efficiency. Like, what happens if Bitcoin is our money, and the world where we live in, the base infrastructure of money is hunting for the cheapest electricity, which right now, when we have US dollars or any other form of currency, they don't really hunt for cheap electricity because there's no real connection between energy and the money. But what actually is the implications if the base layer of money of the world is hunting for cheap electricity all over across the world, and what are the implications also for the energy market, which is that's over my head. How do you look at that?
I think that's by design, right? The Bitcoin is hunting for the cheapest electricity, and that's one of the things that decentralizes it. There's a lot of people around the world who see, there's cheap electricity in here, maybe I could use it. And a lot of minds are trying to solve that problem because it makes economic sense for them. So it is by design, and is just there, and we have to work with this. The way that we approach this and in what we do is, I think the best or the cheapest form of electricity is when you don't need to pay for it. So this is actually how we started with heating and mining. If you already use the electricity for heating, then and you start mining with the same electricity, you get the same amount of heat. You don't use any more electricity for that, but you're also getting the Bitcoin or the Satoshis back as a form of a reward that just goes on top. So that has this beautiful circle of this beautiful virtuous circle of creating just additional benefit out of nothing. And this way, I think it also creates the group of miners, in fact, home miners, that don't really need to turn off their machines irrespective of Bitcoin price, or irrespective of the halving, or irrespective of the fees, because whatever heating that you need, you just turn on your Bitcoin miner to get the heat, and irrespective of all the network parameters or the Bitcoin price, you just get additional reward on top. So that's actually where it makes complete sense. And I hope that us and some of the other people who work in the same problems will be able to deliver the right solutions fast enough so that the devices that we build will be able to sustain the network, the Bitcoin network, well into the future.
Is there any estimates of like how small the share of home miners actually are? I mean, like even beyond maybe heat miners that just like have something at home, or like there's even like the solo miners that sometimes hit a block. But do you know what the kind of the scale of them are? They're probably limited.
It's small. You can make all sorts of estimates, but in terms of the actual home mining or solo mining, it's relatively small. These are, by the way, they kind of the incentives for the home mining and for the solo mining. For heating mining and for solo mining can be slightly different. But even if you combine the two, it's still a relatively small share of the network, right? The solo miners, when they hit the block, it's kind of all over the news each time. But if you sum up those blocks over the past few years and you divide it by the total number of blocks, it's going to be a very small percentage. I believe it's relatively small with the home mining as well, because there's only a few companies that do that, and for us, it's in the thousands of devices, right? And then for there's also people who do DIY kind of home heating mining. That's probably in the thousands, maybe tens of thousands of devices around the world. So that's still relatively much smaller than the total Bitcoin network. But because of the way that the market forces work, like look at it, the advancements in the chip tech is already hitting the ceiling. It's very hard to keep advancing. they can probably, they went down to like less than 10 joules per terahash. That would be the latest Bitmain machines. And that's already the latest kind of just a few nanometers kind of chips. Maybe they can go to like maybe 8 joules per terahash. Maybe they can go to 5. But I don't really see it going much further unless we start changing completely the computing paradigm. Unless we move from silicon to some other completely different kind of computing, using light, using biological substances, using, whatever it is. But you can still improve in terms of improvements in mining, this technological paradigm is probably already hitting the ceiling, but you can still improve a lot on the energy. And this is the kind of direction that will lead us to home mining, because even though, answering your question directly, even though the current share of home mining or heating mining is relatively very small compared to the total Bitcoin hash rate, the potential is actually pretty big. So there's different estimates into the size of the power consumption of the whole Bitcoin network. I hear estimates normally between 150 to 200 terawatt hours in total electricity consumed. I can tell you that if you look at just the residential electric space heating, so, people who heat their homes with electricity, not taking gas or anything else, that's about 600 terawatt hours. So that's several times the Bitcoin mining. And that's just the space heating. Then people also have they have water heating, they have air conditioning, and it's actually maybe possible to do an air conditioner that mines Bitcoin. And air conditioning is like 2,000 terawatt hours. So just the residential, I'm not talking commercial, industrial, etc. Just the residential electric space heating is several times bigger than the total Bitcoin mining in terms of energy consumption. So, the potential is there.
Then the question is like, if you can just have this device, you put it on there and you have the same electricity cost, as you said before, with just heating with a space heater, and you just get Bitcoin on top, the device probably pays for itself in whatever time frame. Like, why aren't more people doing it? It's just like an education curve, or is there any other challenges towards that?
Why not many people doing that? You mean the users? Why not many people are using these devices yet, right?
Yeah,
that's okay. I think it's not the education curve. I think in terms of I've seen people doing it DIY with the miners. Kind of once people figure it out, they can just do it themselves. I think the problem is the lack of availability of devices.
Thank you for watching this video. This was only a snippet of the podcast. And if you want to watch the full episode and get all of the context of this episode, you can click right here or here. Oh, maybe also here.